If you want to make money with sports cards, but you're still not where you want to be, this is about to be the most important 10-minute video you're going to watch all month. Now, if you don't know who I am, I'm Ryan Seaver. I've been investing in cards since 2007. I wrote a best-selling book on card strategy, and I run a program where I help people learn how to win with cards. If you're someone who just grabbed the 4 costly mistakes that are killing your card profits guide, that's great. We're about to walk through it together, and I'm going to explain exactly how to use it. And if you are someone who just randomly landed on this video and you haven't grabbed it yet, I will put a link below where you can grab your copy completely for free. So with that, let's dive into the guide and have some fun here. 4 costly mistakes that are killing your card profits and how to fix them fast. Number 1, relying on luck. Guys, this is a huge one. I think the first most logical thing you say when you step into the card market is, where do I get cards? Well, from packs, of course. Here's the problem. The odds are stacked heavily against you. Heavily against you. And everyone wants to hit that big card. You see all the highlights on social media, but guys, it's a highlight reel. You're not seeing the hundreds of packs between the big hits where people are getting completely crushed and flushing their hard-earned money down the toilet. Okay. So breaks, packs, opening boxes, all of this stuff, it's just a gamble. It's like doing a scratch-off lottery ticket. Yeah, there's a big jackpot somewhere out there, but the odds of you hitting it are astronomical. And you're more often than not just going to end up going into debt doing this, losing money, going into credit card debt. Like, we want to avoid that stuff and get you to the point where you can control the outcome by having more control on what cards actually enter your inventory. Opening packs, we're leaving it completely up to chance what cards we end up with. And so we really can't even have a strategy. We're just hoping for the best if we're opening packs and using that. It's really just not a strategy. So part 2 of this is actually a little less, maybe less obvious. It's player speculation. So I've actually done really well on this over the years, but the further I got into my business here, the more I gravitated away from this strategy. And the reason is because when you're trying to predict the future, you just don't have control over what's going to happen. You don't know if you're right or wrong, and you don't know when it's going to happen. So when I say player speculation, I mean, like, I'm going to buy a card of this up and coming guy, this rising star. I think he's going to go off this year, or here's my sleeper pick for this year. I think he's going to be the one that really breaks out. Those are the types of plays where, sure, you can make money if you're right, but man, it's so hard to get it right consistently. So think about, for every single professional sports league, there are full-time scouts. Their only job is to get talent prediction correct. And then every single year, there's a bunch of first-round draft picks that they pick and that bust. So even the can't miss prospects absolutely can miss. I promise you. I've seen it. I've had cards that have been can't miss prospects that have just completely busted, and it's no fun. But the thing is, again, you can win with card speculation or with player speculation, but it's so difficult to find any kind of predictability or consistency here. You don't know if it's going to take a month, if it's going to take 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years for that card to actually pan out. And so what I'm more interested in is, how can I create predictable cash flow? And so I like to use strategies that give me a lot more control. In The Dark Knight, the famous Batman movie, Harvey Dent says, I make my own luck. He's got the coin that has 2 heads on both sides. That is what we want to do in the card world. We want to get away from getting lucky and just make sure that we can control our own destiny here. All right, number 2, buying without a plan. Now, this probably sounds obvious, but all too often I see new card investors dive into the market and just buy all willy-nilly nonsense without any kind of rhyme or reason. So you're buying your favorite player, cards from your favorite team. You saw somebody, a player being talked about on Facebook or on Instagram and said, I don't want to miss this. So you jump in because there's the fear of missing out. All of this basically leaves you with a pile of stuff where you're in no man's land. Like, you don't have a plan for what's going to actually happen or where you think you can get your money out. And so I think it sounds good to say, well, we got to have a plan, but let's break it down further and get to the point where we can really operationalize this or figure out, what do we have to do here? So the thing that I like to think about is, what has to happen for it to become a profitable play before I make this card investment? And so to break that down one step further, the fix here is use a simple why and when filter. So I asked myself 2 questions. First one is, why do I think this card's value is going to rise? And then number 2 is, when do I think it's realistically going to rise? And those two questions, I need to be able to answer both of them completely logically. If I can't, it's probably not an investment that I want to make, right? I want to have the exact reason that I think that this is going to rise and then a timeline attached to it. So I'm not just waiting indefinitely. So a couple of quick examples of this. I might buy a baseball card of a rising star in November because everyone's focused on, the Thanksgiving, the holidays upcoming. Everyone's focused on football season that's in full swing at that point. Not as many people are excited about buying, rising baseball stars at that time in the year during the off season. And so my plan is, okay, I'm going to buy this here and sell it going into the next season. So as excitement returns to the market. And so my why is proper market timing. And my win is 3-4 months. And I think that I'll have a realistic chance of turning a profit. It doesn't mean that I'm going to 100% of the time be right. That's the big distinction here. But it does mean that I have a plan in place if I can logically explain the why and the when. Example number two, really cut and dry here, but grading. So I look at the numbers. I see a card that's selling for $50 raw. It's selling for 250 as a PSA 10. Cool. That looks like a pretty good grading opportunity. So I buy the card hoping that grading will create a profit margin if the card gets a PSA 10. We know PSA grading takes about 3 to 4 months right now to get that order back. And so that is my why is I think I can grade this card. My when is about 3 to 4 months before it comes back from grading. So both examples here, I have both the why and the when. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to get a 9 on that example 2. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be right on example number 1, but I at least have a plan in place. And if you're someone who's trying to figure this out still, you're not exactly sure what type of plan to put in place. I run a membership program. It's called Cardboard Profit Ignite, where we give you a proven system that you can learn and plug into. So there's no more guessing. You always know your next move. You know exactly what to do to create consistent cash flow in the space. And you get to do it alongside other people that are going the same direction, which is a lot of fun. So if that's for you, I will drop a link in the description below. If that's not for you, cool. Let's get on to number 3, which is getting greedy. Now, greed is interesting because it doesn't feel like greed. A lot of times it actually kind of disguises itself as hope. And it's the wrong kind of hope, if you ask me. So there's 2 real examples of this that I see over and over in the card market. And the first one is holding on to a card that has dropped in value. So you buy something for $100, the player goes out and he kind of lays an egg, doesn't do very well. So the value dips and it's down to, $65, $70 because the player sucked, frankly, right? Or maybe a card, you send it off for grading and it comes back a PSA 8. What do you do there? A lot of times people end up holding that card, just kind of hoping it rises back without really having any real plan. So going back to number 2, the why and the when, we don't have the why anymore or the when. We're just kind of in no man's land there. And so we're hoping for the best. We're hoping something turns around. Maybe a player will, figure it out on the field and get hot. All too often we see this and we end up just having our money tied up indefinitely. So the second example of this is hesitating when a card actually does climb. So you pay $100 for a card, something happens that creates a profit margin for you. You could sell it for 150, but you say, well, wait though, what if it goes to 175? What if it goes to 200, right? I don't want to sell too early. And so you end up holding on to that thing. Here's the thing, guys. Sometimes those windows close and your chance to cut a loss turns into an even bigger loss, or your chance to profit disappears completely. And so when we think about holding onto a card way too long, the real problem here is it's kind of like we're on a sinking ship and we're just like choosing not to get onto the lifeboat that's sitting right there. Like there are so many cards out there to buy, and you're never going to make it through this market without taking a loss. Everyone takes losses here and there. It's just that you want the wins to outweigh the losses. And so by holding on to a losing card, you're just costing yourself twice, because 1, you're going to lose on the card itself, whether now or in the future when you finally sell. But 2, you're costing yourself and all the other opportunities that you could be pursuing with that money, but instead you're leaving it tied up in that bad investment. As information changes, we need to change our strategy. We need to change our approach, adjust what actions we're taking. And this is a really good example of this. The second part, again, is trying to squeeze every possible penny out of the sale, trying to maximize, trying to get top dollar, the highest all-time sale on every single card. I want you to take this to heart. There are so many opportunities out there. There are so many cards. You do not have to try to retire from the sale of every single card that you own, guys. I promise you can go and find something else out there to make more money on. So here's the thought exercise that I want to go through is If you could have either $100 right now or $125 in 3 months, which one would you take? I think a lot of people would say, well, 125, I only got to wait 3 months. I'm just going to wait till for that and take the 125. But the way I look at this is I want that $100 because I want to be able to go and take that, go and reinvest it into another card that maybe I can get graded. And all of a sudden, in the same amount of time that you waited for your 100 to turn into 125, I just turned my 100 into 250 or 300 because I got a good grade on that card. So there's always these opportunities out there that are bigger than just sitting on a card holding. That's what I like to be mindful of is I think when you think about greed, it's like, man, I'm really trying to look out for my own best interest. But what folks don't realize is how much it's costing you to hold out and to hang on forever. There's so many cards out there. We've got to keep that inventory moving. And there's oftentimes better buys and more profitable plays to be made out there. So the fix is shift the mindset from trying to retire off of every single card to focusing on momentum and keeping our money moving into better opportunities. Greed is expensive. And I'll wrap this one up with an analogy that I came up with that I think makes some sense. I don't know, you can tell me, but cards are like baseball bats. When one gets cracked, you don't hold on to it hoping it's going to magically fix itself. You grab a new bat so you can keep swinging. And that's exactly what we want to do in the card world as well. All right, number 4, and this is a massive one, guys. Grading the wrong cards. So if you've been in this market for more than 5 seconds, you've probably heard about grading, and maybe you've even tried it, but it's one of the fastest ways to multiply your profits once you know what you're doing. The challenge is you've got to know what you're doing, okay? And so the biggest part of this, the first step is just understanding what types of cards to send for grading. And so there's 2 scenarios here. One is if you're sending stuff that's not in good enough condition, you're getting bad grades there, 8s, 9s. We don't want that. That's not going to make you profits on ultra modern cards. We're looking for 10s. But the real challenge here is a lot of times newer investors will send off cards. They'll get 10s and they'll just not make any money on them because they're sending cards that have such low upside that they're even the best case scenario, the best possible grade they could get, a 10, isn't going to be profitable. And so what really sucks here is you did the work, you got the right grade, but you didn't get paid for it. We got to avoid that, okay? And so the fix here is we need to have a better way to filter what types of cards to send and make sure we're sending high upside cards, okay? And so years ago, I created what I call the 2x rule to solve this exact problem. So this is a really simple framework, and the 2x rule is this. Focus on grading cards where a PSA 10 is worth at least 2x the raw price plus the grading fee. So we want PSA 10 to be worth double our total cost. And so if we do this, what it's doing is it's making sure that we're putting ourselves in position to win big when we get the grade that we're looking for. For example, if we're spending $30 on the raw card, $20 on the grading fee, our total cost is $50. And 50 times 2, of course, is $100. So I want to see a PSA 10 for that particular card. I want to see it worth at least $100 to feel good about submitting that card. And if it doesn't meet that threshold, it's probably a card that I just don't want to submit for grading. There's 2 reasons for this. One is the actual upside, but 2 is the downside. If you don't get a 10, the 9s and the 8s and any non-10 grade basically becomes increasingly more costly for every time that you send a lower upside card. If we're sending high upside cards, those 10 grades are going to more than make up for any non-10s. And so that's the beauty of this is it's kind of like a double-edged sword where if you do it wrong, you're going to get it very wrong. If you do it right, you're going to get it very right. And so sending high upside cards is one of the highest leverage things you can possibly do in the entire card market if you're someone that sends cards regularly for grading. One caveat to this, I will say that higher end cards, like higher actual dollar cards, sometimes you don't need the 2x rule as much. Let's say you send $1,000 card and it becomes $1,800 as a PSA 10. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty happy with an $800 profit on a card. But on the lower end of the market, it's especially important because this is going to make sure that we're not getting crushed by our grading fees, the selling fees that just would steal away all the profit. If you're sending a $5 card that's worth $30, $32 as a PSA 10, there's just not enough meat on the bone there after your grading fees, your selling fees. And that's assuming you get all 10s. Like if you get 8s or 9s or any non-10 grades, it's just taking a huge bite out of your potential profit margin there. So send high upside cards. All right, we got a bonus round for you. Mistake number 5, trying to do it all alone. And so the tip for you here is, man, if I just look back over my journey of almost 20 years of investing in cards, one of the advantages that I've found is to always surround myself with people that are trying to go the same direction. So, finding a peer, finding someone that was maybe a couple steps ahead of me. And that way I always had a sounding board. I could always bounce ideas off of people. I could always get feedback, and I just had somewhere to go to make sure that I was doing the right thing and to at least get a second opinion when I needed it. And so I don't know about you, but my wife like cannot stand cards. Like she's fine with it. She's supportive and all, but anytime I start to talk to her about cards, she just like her eyes glazes over and she's just like, all right, whatever, dude. Very supportive, of course, but she doesn't care. So I think a lot of people are like that, where you may not have close friends or family that you can talk to about cards, and so we've got to find our tribe, right? We got to find our people, and so the fix here is to surround yourself with people who are already where you want to be, and thinking about where do we go for this? Well, I created a community. It's called Cardboard Profit Ignite. This is my membership program where we basically help you take the guesswork out of card investing. So we have a proven system. At this point, this is a system that I've used to make hundreds of thousands of dollars with sports cards. And I can't promise that you're going to do that because I don't know how hard you're going to work. The market changes here and there. But what I can say is that this has worked for so many people who have plugged into the system and stuck with it. So if you're someone who wants more structure, more support, and to just shortcut that learning curve, that is what this program exists to be. So if you want to be a part of this, I'll drop a link in the description down below. Would love to see you inside. But even if not, guys, you've already taken a big step by just downloading this guide, by going through this video. You just don't need luck to win in this market. You can win by being strategic. You just got to learn the right plays, the right system, the right approach, and cut back on some of these mistakes. And it's going to put you in really strong position to get where you want to be.